running 225s on the 10-inch. What do you think you spent on it so far, including all the modifications? Could you name maybe 3 to 5 things that is necessary to sub to in a Miata? What's up, guys? Welcome back to Sub 2 Club. Today we're here with Mitchel Yardley. All right, Mitchel. So,
yes, sir.
How did you first get into cars and then the track days?
So cars, my father was a huge gearhead, and he's had cars his whole life when I was growing up and would tinker with them. He had a bunch of muscle cars. That's always what he's been into, was muscle cars. And when I got older, I was able to get into my first car, which my parents bought me, was a 71 GMC short bed and muscle truck. It was lowered, had just a 350 small block, and that was where my love of the color blue came from, because that truck was like a bright blue, color. Mm-hmm. And had that, put some modifications in it and drove it. And eventually I wanted to get to a point where I wanted to put like a Vortec in it and put air conditioning, power steering, all that jazz. And it was just getting really expensive at that time. So we sold it. We actually sold it for more than what we bought it for, which was awesome. And I picked up a Mazda 3 hatchback. So a 2007 Mazda 3 hatchback. It wasn't a speed, because I didn't know what Mazda speed was at that time, because I was just getting into cars, or tuner cars, that is. And I modified that, lowered it. That was basically the first car I actually ever kind of modified myself. I put Coney yellows on it, Eibach sport lines, BBS LM reps, and it was an automatic. Unfortunately, it wasn't a manual, but I knew it was an automatic, so I didn't put any like power mods into it. So, but I took it to a couple autocrosses, and this kind of transitions to that question of how I got into, kind of racing. Is that car, I took it to Adams Motorsports Park a couple times, and that's in Riverside. And it's a little autocross course. And after doing that a couple years, I figured out that I want to get into a more, sport-oriented car. And I picked up my first Miata, which was a 95 NA. And I went to Adams basically religiously every week for like the first couple years. And that's back when they had Time Attack on Tuesdays. So I would go there almost every week with my dad, and I would autocross there, learn how to drive rear-wheel drive. And then after about 2 years, I eventually got into my first track, which was Streets of Willow. Did Streets of Willow for probably, 6 times, and started to realize, okay, I know where the car needs to get. It needs to get better suspension, needs to get better tires, and eventually worked my way up to going to the next track, which was Chuckwalla. And then just kind of snowballed into kind of where I'm at right now.
So how do you go from a big Chevy to a
yeah
little import? What was the process of that like?
It was just, I wanted to modify that the truck, and it was really expensive. And I was young at the time. I was 16. I was just started driving, so I had no job, no nothing, and I wasn't gonna rely on my parents to kind of throw all that money together and do that. So I said, let's get a little bit more economical car and something I could, slightly modify myself. I obviously didn't tell my parents I was going to modify it, but we settled on this Mazda 3 hatchback because I like wagons. I like bigger cars. Well, oddly enough, I have a Miata, but I like wagons and stuff like that. So I got that hatchback, and I drove that, and then I realized, hey, I want a cooler car. The first car that was actually my real purchase was a Mazda Speed Miata, 2004 Mazda Speed Miata. And that is when I really started diving into heavier modifications with like the engine per se. Those came factory turbo, and I put in flying Miata parts, downpipes, etc., blow off valve, and it was tuned. And that car was super fun. It was pretty funny because like I would pass people on the freeway or on the street, and they're like, it sounds like an SRT4 because of the way that my exhaust setup was. So yeah, that was going from that Chevy truck up to the Mazda Speed Miata, and then I sold the Mazda Speed Miata and then got back into another Chevy truck. So
okay. And how long have you owned this car?
This NC I've had for just over 2.5 years.
2.5 years.
And then before that, I had another NC, which was white, and I had that one for about a year. I unfortunately crashed that in GMR. I flipped it. I was being stupid. Crashed it. I was able to take the engine out, which that white car had a 2.5 swap. So these cars are very notorious for getting swapped with 2.5 engines from the Ford Duratex, any of those Mazda products that use the 2.5. That car was crashed. I parted it out, took the 2.5, and I was able to find this one on OfferUp. The funny story about that one is I just crashed the white car, and I'm like, am I done with cars? Should I not do this anymore? Like, that was a really scary experience. Obviously, I still had my truck, so I wasn't out of a car. And this is, I'm not saying this is my life, but this is a very big part of my life, and I wanted to keep doing it. So I said, you know what? I'm going to buy another Miata. I'm not going to go to an NA or an NB. I'm going to stick with the NC. They're really expensive still. Even to this day, they're still expensive. I was able to find this one. It wasn't in the condition that you see it now, but it had the same hard top. It had a couple of modifications inside, but it had a blown 2.0. And the guy wanted like $2,500, and it was up for sale on OfferUp for like 6 months. I'm like, does this guy really have this still? So I messaged him on a whim, like at 9 o'clock at night. He's in Long Beach. He goes, yep, I still have it. And I go, will you entertain like $2,300 if I come get it tomorrow? He's like, yeah, you got to bring a trailer. I said, done, I'll be there tomorrow. So I picked that up, and I'll give you the photos of what it looked like before, but that's how I ended up with this one. So I wrecked a white NC, ended up with this one, and this is still by far my favorite chassis for Miatas.
Okay. Is there a reason why NC is better for you than NA and B?
I'm a big dude, so I fit obviously a hell of a lot better in these cars. Even with 100% full interior, even stock seats, I fit a lot better than I ever did in an NA. In my NA, I had a big seat. I had the seat drop, the floor pan delete, or the re-welding of it, and I was still a little, scrunched up. But the NC, I fit a hell of a lot better in there.
All right. All right. Let's talk about the car. What have you done to exterior and chassis?
Exterior, pretty much as you can see it. We have, I guess we'll start from the front, we'll go to the back.
Okay.
Stock front bumper, I have a GV rep lip to fill the void to be used with the race bred front splitter, chassis mount front splitter, 3D printed hood vent, fender vents on the side, which kind of contrast because I need actual real hood vents, which they're here. I just got to install them. Moving towards the middle, I have these APR carbon fiber mirrors, which you can't see shit out of them. Nothing really on the side, no side skirts. I have this is a first gen DG Motorsports fiberglass top. Weighs like, I don't know, 7 pounds.
Wow, that's it, huh?
Yeah, just a plexiglass window.
Okay.
For exterior still, removed the rear bumper because I did a chassis mount wing. And that's really about it for the exterior. Wheel and tire setup is 17 by 10 RPF 1s.
All the way around?
All the way around. Tires are Yokohama 80, what are these again?
AO52s?
AO52s. Yokohama AO52s, 225.
What was the wheel size again?
17 by 10.
Okay, wow.
Plus 38.
You're running 225s on the 10-inch.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's a lot of controversy with that. This car has had 255s on it for basically the majority of its life. There's a lot of misconception on that size of a tire width based on this horsepower, and I felt that wide of a tire was too wide for this car. I felt like I was losing a lot of mile per hour speed, straight line speed, and I figured if I go to a stickier tire that's smaller, I should still have that lateral grip coming out of the corner. I've only done one track day, and that's the track day that I hit my best at Buttonwillow. I gained like 3 mile per hour everywhere, like literally corners, straightaways, everywhere. And the car didn't feel really any different, as in losing grip, and it felt perfect on the track going to a smaller tire.
That's a great information, because I noticed that on my car too. When you go wider, in some tracks you actually get slower.
Correct.
Yeah, and it takes a long time to heat up those tires.
Correct.
Right? You actually tried it out, so that's
yeah. This chassis is really kind of odd because me and my roommate and a couple of my other friends, we kind of make fun of it because a lot of these NC guys do the same mods and then they stop. And it's no one does anything different. So for me, for example, I did the 225s on the 10s. I did the chassis mount wing, or at least a different chassis mount wing. There's a company who makes one, but it gets mounted somewhere differently. And yeah, I'm just trying out new things with the car. Other than that, I'm still kind of limited at the power that it's going to make, but I still think I can go a couple tenths faster with the setup that it has right now.
Okay. Since you mentioned power, what kind of power do you have, and how much does the car weigh?
So this makes, last time I dynoed it, about 185 horsepower and about 180 pound-feet of torque.
Okay.
And with me in it, it's about 2530.
And your PB right now was
At
buttonwillow?
Buttonwillow is 156.8.
That's fast. That's fast.
Yeah, and that was the last time that was the last time I went, and the first time with this tire setup.
Okay.
So, and before that, the fastest I did was like a 158.9.
Okay.
So
just from the tire change, you think you gained that much lap time? Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah, and the tires before weren't a bad tire. They're still they're a Falcon RT660. But these Yokohamas, there's really nothing out there that can beat that other than going to like a Hoosier. So
right, and by having a 10-inch tire or 10-inch wheels,
it's not overly stretched, but it's not going to have that flex.
Exactly.
And that's what's really killer on this setup. I personally think I can go a little bit smaller wheel, go to like a by 9, and still have the same benefit. I'll just get a lighter wheel now.
Right.
So
right. Well, let's continue on to the chassis parts. Mm-hmm. I see some tubular arms in the back.
Yeah, so those are just installed. Those are phase 2 motor trend tubular arms with uniball joints up front, and then for the bushings towards the subframe are sphericals.
Okay.
And the reason why I went with these is not because of like all the crazy adjustment. I don't need all that adjustment at all. Is with the Mazda arms, just like other cars, you can't change the ball joints. You can change the bushings, but you can't change the ball joints, so you have to get brand new arms. Mm-hmm. And I figured, well, if I can still get brand new Mazda arms, but I'm still limited at that rubber bushing that's going to be very spring-like when you lower that car this much. And so I went with this company. They hooked me up with a deal, and I put these on, and I haven't had any track days with them, so I can't really say much. But driving around on the street, they feel fine. They feel good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you're going to see quite a gain. Hopefully.
I mean, the whole point of that is to make sure the alignment's not shifting on you. So hopefully that happens. I still gotta get it to a shop. It's very close to what it was before with the string alignment, but I want to get it to a shop so they can put on a machine with the lasers and see exactly where it's at. But there's so much adjustment in the arms that it's literally like, if I was a drifter, maybe I can get crazy angles, but I don't need any of that. So
okay. What about the brakes?
Brakes are stock calipers, stock rotors, other than just brand new blank rotors. But the pads are G-Lock R12s up front and R10s in the rear.
Okay. How do you like those?
Coming from Hawk HP Pluses, a huge difference. Mm-hmm. I experienced with the Hawk HP Pluses, and a lot of people can contest to this, is they're like an on and off switch. They work or they don't work. There's no modulation with the brakes. And I never really experienced that until I got to a real good, brake pad, where these have a modulation now. So I can brake a little bit if I want to, I can brake a lot if I want to. And they heat up really quickly. I like it. They throw a huge amount of dust, but it's not a street car. So brake fluid is RBF 660 Motul. It seems like everyone uses that. So
who makes the rear wing?
Yeah, so the front is race spread, all their bracketry and everything. That's not an off-the-shelf race spread splitter. It's a little bit more custom for my car. Anyone can get that through race spread. You just have to give him a call, give him an email, and he'll help you out. The rear setup is kind of a hybrid. So the foil is from race spread. The end plates are from Caspec Engineering. And then the plates, the uprights are from my roommate, Sean. He helped me out, and we cut these out. It's 6061 aluminum, 6 inches wide, and I think 3/8 thick. And then we made some plates where the original bash bar or crash bar came, and we welded them up. Before you see it here, it was a race spread off-the-shelf a wing setup. And it got mounted here on the trunk. And what was really cool was the way the dimensions set up. I didn't have to drill new riv nuts into the foil. So everything kind of is still in the same spot. And I was able to use the race spread side mounts that come with the off-the-shelf kit for the trunk. So now it's basically everything is really tight. The whole car is one. It's all as one now. So it's a true chassis mounted wing.
Nice.
And it doesn't weigh much more than what the race spread setup was. Plus, minus the bumper and everything, I think I'm within a pound before everything. So
Mitchell, what kind of coilovers?
The coilovers on the car are a set of Super Miata Zetas, 16K front springs and 10K rear. I don't know the pound, so I would tell you the pound, but I don't know. But yeah, super good coilovers. It was a huge step from what I had before. I had a set of Feel 441 coilovers, which they did their job. I was able to do the 158 on the Feels, but it's crazy to go from a coilover like that. That's just the shock bodies are different to how they mount on the car. The cartridge is the same to a shock that's truly meant for this car with the travel and everything. It's a huge jump up, and they're expensive, but being on the track, it definitely shows, like how you can hit curbs and the car doesn't want to get upset and want to fight you. The car is just doing what it needs to do. It's soaking up all the imperfections on the road.
Is that a two-way coilover or
one way?
One way.
Yeah, one way. Super Miata does make two ways for the NA and B chassis, not for the NC, at least not yet. But it's a one way. The rear is inverted, like the Mazda Speeds or the Penske's that were made when these were doing the Cup Car challenge. So it is inverted, so you can get that good shock travel.
From my understanding, these cars are very similar to the RX-8.
Very much so, very much so. It's just a mini RX-8, which a lot of people say. The subframe in the rear, other than two bushings, the subframes are basically identical. All the arms are identical. These are actually made for an RX-8, the arms that I put on, but they fit on the NC no problem. So front end is merely identical. The rear end's merely identical. All the suspension kind of geometry is very much the same.
What about the diff?
The differential is from an RX-8. So that pertains to your question if you asked about the similarities. The differential per se is not a bolt-in situation. There's a huge modification I had to do with the power plant frame to make sure it fit. And the whole story of getting into the RX-8 differential was at Big Willow, I broke the passenger side hub. These are very well known to be breaking hubs because of if you get to a stickier tire, they'll break. And a common upgrade is doing RX-8 hubs. To do that upgrade, you have to do a couple other modifications to get to that setup. You have to get RX-8 axles and another NC set of axles and kind of Frankenstein them together. Once you do all that, you're still left with an NC differential, but you get the bigger hubs in the rear. At the time, these cars come with 4.1 ring and pinion differentials, and I wanted to go to something a little bit more aggressive. And RX-8s came with two different options. You can get a 4.3 in the automatic, or you can get a 4.4 in the manual trans. Later on in the S2 chassis, you can get into a 4.7, which is a little overkill. I think it would have been too much for this car, so I settled on a 4.4. And how I got into the RX-8 differential is if I just wanted to buy a 4.4 ring and pinion for the NC LSD, it would have been around like $800. They're very expensive because this size is a little oddball. It's not the same size. The RX-8 ring and pinion, whole differential is an 8-inch ring and pinion. Oh. So that gets shared with the FC RX-7 and a couple other cars. And buying that differential, the whole thing with the LSD, it's just a Torsen. It's nothing crazy, but it's a true LSD. It's around like $300. So
wow.
I found. So the whole story goes is I found the differential, I found axles, and I found knuckles, which entails give me hubs at a junkyard. I bought brand new Mazda hubs, so they're OEM hubs, slapped all that together, put everything in, and really the modification I needed to do was the power plant frame. It just doesn't sit correct, and I had to add a block and drill some new holes, and now it's all in. Wow. So long story short, the whole rear is essentially kind of an RX-8 now of my car.
That's awesome.
Other than the subframe, but the subframes on the RX-8s just have bushings in them, where the NC is basically just bolted to the car. And it makes total sense because the RX-8 was more geared towards like a touring car. So they wanted to put bushings in there so it's a little bit more compliant for like any normal driver.
Very good knowledge here, boys.
Yeah, I like to help people with the NC chassis. If they have any questions, they can always hit me up.
Wow, okay. It looks pretty OEM, but we know that this is to 2.5.
Correct.
All right, so walk us through it.
So if you were to open the engine on a open the hood on a stock 2.0, you would see a lot more plastic. You would see big battery over here, big air box over here. A lot of the parts in here are 2.0 parts because it's the 2.0 and the 2.5 are virtually the same engines. I have an AEM intake here. This stock intake, or buying it from AEM, would have put the filter way down at the front of the bumper, but I have an oil cooler on here, so I had to kind of modify the intake. So the filter basically sits right behind the scoop, hence why I put this one here. So
Nice.
cone filters behind here. Expansion tank for the coolant. OEM, these are very well known to be to break because they're plastic. So that's that's a modification a lot of people do. First off is doing the stainless steel tank.
Okay.
Battery relocation off to this side just so I can get a lot more airflow to the engine bay.
And what is that battery out of? Lawnmower?
Yeah, just a basic
smallest
little
one, right?
AGM, little basic AGM battery.
And that's been working for you?
Yeah, no, I keep it on a tender.
Okay.
So
Great. Yeah.
if you were obviously looking at a stock 2.0, you would see a power steering reservoir here. I deleted the power steering on the car. The pump wasn't working, and after driving a couple other people's NCs that had 17x9, 17x10s, I was like, you guys can steer this car really easy, and mine's really difficult. And I never heard the pump making weird noises or anything, but when I finally fully deleted it, I realized, my power steering must have never been working. So the power steering delete pulley, which it's just a pulley, is a from like an 09 to 11 Mazda Tribute. Bolts right on the engine.
How difficult is a 2.5 swap?
Very easy. They're not difficult at all. You're going to take some parts from your 2.0 and put them on the 2.5, oil pan, valve cover, intake manifold. The 2.5s use a balance shaft, or like a harmonic balancer per se, inside the engine, and you just remove that. There's a plug you put in, and there's so many write-ups, there's so many videos on how to do the 2.5s that anyone can do one. There's a big debate on figuring out if it's easier to pull it out from the top or dropping them. Every time I've dropped this engine, because I've had to do it a couple times, I lift the car up as high as I can and drop the full subframe. So
is 2.5 like a mandatory thing if you want a sub 2?
no, absolutely not.
Okay.
There's a lot of people who, I don't think there's one person that's done, no, I think Frankie has done a sub 2 in his 2.0. I'm pretty sure he has.
Okay.
I don't think you need aero either. You're going to need a lot of balls and a good tire, but yeah, you can. I think someone could do a sub 2 in
Okay.
not a bone stock 2.0 NC. It would need some modifications, but not as far as a new motor swap or aero.
Gotcha.
Really good suspension and really good tires. I think someone could do a sub 2.
What about the NA and NBs? That's a totally different
That's
story,
a huge discussion. There's a lot of people who are diehard NA, diehard NB guys. I don't hate them. I just have moved on from them. I still like this chassis a lot more. The suspension geometry in these versus the NAs and NBs, I think is years ahead per se. A lot of people still say this car is super heavy, and I get it, but this car weighs just as much as half the NAs and NBs that I go to the track with. So, and I have a lot better suspension geometry with how the tires and the suspension is going to react to bumps and imperfections in the road. And I have a little bit more power than an NA and an NB.
Okay.
Now, if someone's turboed or supercharged, yeah, they're gonna beat me. But NA to NA power, this is still gonna beat any of those NAs out there.
Okay.
NAs or NBs, and that's coming from a guy who had an NA for 7 years. It was never turbo, but it made pretty good power on the V. It wasn't a VVT, it was a BP4W swap. And then I had a Mazda Speed Miata, which that made pretty good power, but it would have got smoked by this thing. So.
And then there's the whole debate of Miatas having turbochargers in there.
Yeah.
In there, right? So
Yeah.
cooling issues.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's always like the next step is like, how can I get more power without, losing the reliability? And I don't know. I don't know. I want to put more power into it, but I'm not going to be able to go at the track as much as I want to because
Right.
I'm going to have cooling issues, and it's super hot here in SoCal. Hence why I'm not even at the track now because it's just too hot. So, but even on a cool day, it's going to get hot. turbos make a huge amount of heat.
Yeah. Speaking of cooling, on this car, what have you done?
So it just has a coil rad.
Okay.
There's bigger radiators out there from Goodwin Racing, but this just has a coil rad, and honestly, I don't even watch the temps because it hasn't made me want to watch them because nothing's ever happened. It's never, at least to my knowledge, it's never overheated because I feel like the motor would have blown by now. So
good.
I have spots where I can put gauges, and I haven't yet, but I don't know. The car is just, it's kind of just a turnkey car. I just get in and I go. What was actually really bizarre to me was how much the oil cooler helps tremendously. I'm sure it's doing its job. But what was really bizarre to me was how much E85 helps these cars, or just cars in general, with cooling the engine. There would be times where I would get off the track, open the hood, and then you would get that blast of like heat. And then after I did E85, I'd open the hood, I'm like, there's no more heat. And I would touch things, I'm like, it's not hot. It's super bizarre.
Plus, it smells good.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man.
What do you think you spent on it so far, including all the modifications?
To get it to where it's at, like right now?
Yeah, just rough number.
I don't know why, but like $7,500 comes to my mind.
Jeez.
But like more than half of that is the coilovers. The coilovers were the most expensive. The coilovers cost more than the car.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna say, yeah, I'll bump it up. I'll say I'm probably like $8,500. Yeah, under 10K. Yeah, wow. Under 10K. But that was with the price of the car. Yeah. Anyone who would like maybe watch this video and get you know excited to get an NC, it's going to be difficult to find one under like $6,000 unless it's completely like destroyed like mine was. I mean, the whole car wasn't destroyed. The engine was messed up, but it's pretty hard to get into these now because I think a lot more people are figuring out these chassis are as good as they are on paper. So a bad way to spend 10 G's. So it's mildly gutted. There's obviously more I can do. I can cut the doors. Heater core still in there. That dash has never been removed. I know I can do some modifications in there to drop some weight, but I don't know. I like having it to look a little bit presentable.
Yeah.
Sparco seat, roll bar, and still pretty basic. Like half carpet in there, and these cars from the factory are all plastic. Where the soft top goes and everything's plastic. So doesn't weigh too much, but all the little bits and pieces, you take it out. I don't know how much weight I've removed, but
yeah, very clean. Simple, clean, effective. Do you have a dream car?
A lot of dream cars. As much as I have my tuner car and everything, I'm still kind of rooted in like muscle cars.
Okay.
So if someone said, yeah, money's no option, get whatever you want, I think I'd have to stick with like a Resto Mod Chevy 2, older Nova, like a 64 Nova or like a 67 Chevelle. Resto Mod has the nice wheels, air conditioning, LS swap. Because that car will just turn heads no matter where you go. Right. Any type of person will be like, what the heck is that thing? So obviously I like supercars and stuff like that. If I were to pick a supercar, it'd probably be like a McLaren 720. Okay. But I'm still kind of rooted in American muscle. So.
Okay. And do you have a favorite track, and what's the reason for it? Favorite
track? As much as I like Buttonwillow, Chuckwall, all the other tracks, Laguna Seca is still my favorite track. Okay. Just because of the atmosphere, where it's at. That's a big boy track. I'll never forget when I was doing the sim racing before I went to Laguna Seca, and when I physically got on the track, you can look left or right, and the track just keeps going because you're like, I'm so used to like Buttonwillow where it's like, you get a couple cars in a lane, like side by side, it'll fill it up. But like Laguna Seca, you could fit like 4 or 5 Miatas like wide. It's just, the track is so surreal and wide. And then going through Corkscrew, no other track will give you that experience of going through Corkscrew where you're looking straight, and when you go down, you still don't see a track. And then you see it, and you're like, holy crap, I just did all that. So such a surreal experience to go to Laguna Seca.
So what does Sub 2 mean to you?
Sub 2 is actually a big thing. It's a big thing in the track world. Outside of it, not a lot of people are going to understand it, but when you hit that mark, that's a surreal experience. I remember I had a 200.4, and I was like, I did Sub 2. And everyone at the paddock was like, no, you didn't. I go, what are you talking about? It says 2 minutes. Like, they go, no, sub is below. And I go, oh man, okay. And from that 200.4, it took me probably another like 9 months to get to like a 159. It was wild, but it was the drive. It was watching videos, doing the sim rig, and going, okay, let's make this happen. So it's a goal. It's a goal that you try to hit, and having goals is always important in life.
Okay. Could you name maybe 3 to 5 things that is necessary to sub 2 in a Miata?
Balls, number 1 and number 2 are balls. Tires, you're gonna have to ball out and get good tires. I don't care what anyone says, you're gonna have to get good tires. A lot of practice, and I would say a lot of practice on like a rig will definitely help you out. And more on the rig part, don't get a car that's gonna do like a 50. Get a car that's gonna barely do like a 2, and get the hand movements and the speed orientation, and that'll transcribe into getting onto a track. Get a car that has, or you're gonna have the Miata, have good suspension, have good articulating suspension. You don't have to go crazy with arms and all that stuff. Get a set of good coilovers that are gonna have really good feedback for you. You don't need the aero, you don't need all the extra power. Tires, suspension, balls, and balls. Because it's so funny with buttonwillow. It's a relatively flat track, but even when I did my 56, I was like, I'm going fast. This is actually kind of scary. When you go 85 through bus stop, then you know, if you hit 85, or like if you hit 80 and above at bus stop, you kind of already know you're going to hit a sub 2, unless you messed up like Phil Hill everywhere else. But when I hit 85, when I did the 56 and I hit 85 through bus stop, I said, holy shit, like this is unreal. And yeah, and I connected everything else. And connecting all the stuff too, connecting all the dots at that track is pretty wild. Some other tracks you can get away with messing up here and there, but buttonwillow, you have to connect all the dots everywhere, or you're not going to get a sub 2.
And final question, what things about life do you learn through cars?
What things do I learn about life through cars? Patience. Patience is a huge thing. Having, like I said, hitting sub 2 is having a goal. Having goals. You have a goal for your car, you should have a goal for your life on what you want to do, and setting expectations. Correct expectations is a big thing too. I don't know, that's a tough question.
Yeah, I think patience alone is
a huge thing. Yeah, you have to have patience. Right. And a reality. You have to have a reality on what's achievable.
Any final thing you want to say to the audience?
Have fun. Have fun. Have fun with your car, whatever that car is. Have fun with it. If tracking is what you want to do, just try to get as much experience, practice as you can. Use sim rigs to your advantage. If you have buddies that have them, hey, can I come over and can I use it? And do a lot of research. Watch a lot of videos. Watch people ask questions. Ask as many questions as you can to someone who's hit that goal that you're trying to achieve, and hopefully that person is receptive to answering. And like me, anyone who asks me questions about my car, I am more than happy to. I'll get on a phone with you. I'll call you. You can come over. You can ask any questions on the car. See it in person. I'm always happy to help. So hopefully that person can get someone who's helpful and can lead them into that, goal.
Okay. Well, that was Mitchell, and we really thank you for your time today.
Appreciate it. Absolutely.
All right. Thank you guys for watching. See you at the next one.